presented by Auraverse, where consciousness, earth and inner wisdom move as one. Showcase your work at auraverse.network and let your voice travel across worlds.
Before we begin, pause for a moment and imagine all the voices we have met so far. Egyptian scribes and Greek philosophers, Hebrew mystics, Buddhist monks, Muslim sages and Christian contemplatives, not as separate statues in a museum, but as instruments in a single orchestra. Different shapes, different tones, but one piece of music. Welcome. I am C.S. Douglas, and this is Codex Æternum, the Rational Bible, a journey through the hidden architecture of power and the living conscience of the universe.
This program is endorsed by Authorpedia, the world's only encyclopedia exclusively dedicated to authors, a living archive where writers and thinkers are immortalized through literature. Visit authorpedia.org and become part of our enduring legacy.
In Book 7, The Universal Wisdom of the Sages, this is episode 98, Interconnectedness and the Inner Light. Think of this episode as stepping back from the painting until you can see the whole canvas. We have traveled through Egypt and India, through Greece, Palestine, Persia, China. And in each place, we have met a different answer to the same set of questions. What is real? Who are we? How should we live? The first thing we notice when we look across these traditions is not chaos, but convergence. The names change. Tao, Logos, Brahman, Ein Sof, Dharmakaya, the divine intellect. Yet each of these terms points toward a single intuition. There is an order, a living intelligence running through the whole of things. Reality is not a pile of debris, it is a pattern. The Taoists tell us that the way flows through all. To act in harmony with it is to move effortlessly, like water finding its course. The Greeks speak of the Logos, a rational structuring fire through which all things are made intelligible. The Kabbalists trace the emanations of the infinite down the tree of life, where divine energy steps itself down into worlds and souls. You do not have to memorize the vocabularies to feel what they share. Behind them all lies the claim that the universe is not stupid. It is intelligent, and that intelligence is not merely in our heads. Our heads are local expressions of a more fundamental wisdom. From this flows the second great theme, interconnectedness. Every tradition, in its own accent, says that nothing truly stands alone. Buddhism offers the doctrine of dependent origination. This being, that becomes, this ceasing, that ceases. Every phenomenon is a node in a vast web of conditions. The Native American sages speak of the sacred hoop, the circle of life in which animals, humans, winds, and waters all participate. To break the hoop through greed or contempt is not only immoral, it is unwise, because the break will eventually reach you. Kabbalah imagines a cosmos of sephirot, interlinked channels through which divine energy flows. To act justly or unjustly is to open or constrict those channels, not in theory, but in the living tissue of history and soul. From this perspective, ethics stops being a set of external rules. It becomes a description of how a being behaves when it understands that it is part of a whole. The Confucian speaks of Ren, human-heartedness, as the natural expression of a person who knows that they exist in a web of family, community, and cosmic order. Aristotle's golden mean proposes balance between extremes, courage between cowardice and rashness, generosity between miserliness and waste, because too much or too little throws the delicate ecosystem of the soul out of tune. The Kabbalist's Tikkun Olam, the repair of the world, assumes that our actions reverberate beyond us. To perform a genuine act of justice is to realign a thread in the universal fabric. Different metaphysics, same music. You are not a loose bolt rolling around in an empty box. You are a participant in a larger pattern, and the quality of your participation matters. A third motif is the inner journey. The sages agree that the outer world is not the only or even the primary theatre of transformation. There is something in us that can turn and look at its own experience, evaluate it, and change its relation to it. Socrates tells us that the unexamined life is not worth living. He treats conversation as midwifery for the soul, a way of bringing forth latent understanding through honest questioning. The Buddhists prescribe meditation, not as escape, but as a technology for observing how the mind creates suffering and freedom. The Kabbalist ascends through worlds in contemplative prayer. The Sufi turns the heart through remembrance, removing the dust of forgetfulness so that the divine name can be reflected clearly. Again and again the message is the same. You do not simply receive truth from outside authorities, you must verify it in the laboratory of your own awareness. And this brings us to the heart of episode 98, the theme of the inner light. This idea appears everywhere, wearing different clothes. In the Upanishads, the Atman, the deepest self, is said to be one with Brahman, the ultimate reality. To realize this is to wake up from the dream of separateness. In Christian mysticism, the Christ within is not a slogan. It is the recognition that the same divine logos, through which all things were made, speaks in the quiet center of the soul. To attend to that voice is to walk toward union with God. The Quaker tradition builds a whole practice around the inner light. They sit in silence, not waiting for an external spectacle, but listening for the small, clear sense of rightness that arises from within. And they dare to treat that as genuine guidance. Kabbalah speaks of the Neshamah, a higher level of the soul where divine light touches human consciousness. Sufism speaks of a flame of love in the heart, uncovered by remembrance and the polishing of character. In Tibetan Buddhism, meditation practices aim at recognizing a clear light mind, a luminous open awareness prior to our usual clutter of habits and stories. It is not framed as a soul, yet it functions as a kind of inner radiance, a base of clarity from which wisdom and compassion can arise. Taoism, for all its earthy imagery, also hints at an inner luminosity. To live in harmony with the Tao is to allow the subtle energy, the qi, to circulate freely. The sage becomes like a valley that receives all waters and yet remains clear. The light of the Tao shines through such a person without obstruction. When you place these images side by side, a single contour emerges. There is in each human being a point of contact with the deeper intelligence of the universe. It is not created by our preferences. It is discovered when we become quiet, honest, and attentive enough to notice it. This inner light is not merely comforting. It demands something. If there is a divine spark in you, there is also a divine spark in those you fear, dismiss, or ignore. To recognize the light within is eventually to recognize the light everywhere. This is why compassion keeps surfacing as a universal principle. The Bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism vows not to enter final liberation until all beings are free. The Kabbalist speaks of Tikkun Olam, not as a vague environmentalism, but as active repair of the fractures in creation. The Sufi lover sees the beloved in every face. Ethics, in this view, is not a leash placed on a wild animal. It is the natural behavior of a being who understands its own nature. A world of separate egos must be coerced into goodness. A world of luminous centers in a single field of life can, in principle, discover the joy of acting in harmony. There is also, across the traditions, a repeated insistence on balance. Chinese philosophy draws the symbol of yin and yang, light and dark, active and receptive, each containing the seed of the other. Greek ethics praises the mean between extremes. Maimonides, the great Jewish rationalist, speaks of the middle path as the healthy way for most characters to develop. This balancing act is not lukewarmness. It is the art of tuning a stringed instrument so that it can resonate. Too tight, and it snaps. Too much asceticism, too much zealotry, too much certainty, and both individuals and societies break. Too loose, and it will not play. Too much laxity, too much indifference, and no clear tone emerges. The sages suggest that wisdom is this ongoing adjustment, moment by moment, between courage and prudence, solitude and community, contemplation and action. What then does all of this mean for us? Sitting in a world of screens, notifications, and fractured attention? It means that however modern our technologies, our basic situation has not changed. We are still conscious beings in a mysterious cosmos. We still suffer when we believe we are isolated fragments. We still find relief when we discover a larger pattern and a deeper light. The universal wisdom of the sages does not ask you to abandon your tradition or to adopt someone else's costume. Instead, it offers you a set of principles you can test in your own life. Reality is ordered and intelligible. Everything is connected. Your actions matter because they reverberate through that web. You have access to a source of guidance within if you dare to listen. True freedom comes from knowledge and alignment, not from mere rebellion. Compassion is not optional. It is what understanding looks like when it enters the body. Carry this revelation as a daily experiment. Take a single ordinary encounter with a friend, a stranger, or even a frustrating email. And before you respond, pause long enough to remember two things at once. First, that you and the other are threads in the same fabric, parts of the same living system. Second, that there is in you a small but real light capable of seeing this, capable of choosing in a way that honors it. Then act from that double awareness. Nothing dramatic may happen on the outside, but inside you will have taken a step into the universal path. The path all the sages describe in their different tongues. In our next episode, we will bring these strands together even more explicitly. We will explore the inner light and the realization of the intelligent universe as Theos. How this convergence of teachings points to a single, living divine principle, and what it means to inhabit a universe that is, in its depths, conscious and loving. Our next sponsor is Everly Books Publishing Group, a traditional independent press serving both new and established writers. Everly Books welcomes unsolicited manuscripts submitted directly through everlybooks.org.